My name is Darci Steranko, and I am the owner of Silver Linings Agency. It's my job to work with Rob to find a surrogate that wants to help you make a family or add to your family. I've been in this industry for about 15 years. I started out working at a clinic much like Fertility Center of Las Vegas. I ran their third-party program, and so did what I do inside a clinic, which was great training. So I was able to take the information that they taught me in terms of what to look like, yes. They taught me how to dress, what to look at in terms of a surrogate, much like Dr. Donna Schmidt was talking about. Her age, her births, did she have complications, did she have multiple C-sections, all of those things that we want to take a look at in terms of surrogate candidates and weed those out that don't meet that criteria, that clinic, there's some pretty standard clinical criteria for a surrogate. That's my son. That's obviously a little bit ago. He's now a big boy. He's not a baby anymore. But I did IVF to have my child. So I'm very thankful for the process. I get it. I know what it's like to not be successful. We had one cycle that was not successful, so I can kind of, I've kind of had a touch of all things. I'm not like a surrogate. I'm not a good pregnant person. I would never be a surrogate. You would not want me to be your surrogate. I'm too old, first of all, and I'm just not a good pregnant person. But it was nice because I can now talk to the surrogates about, what they're going through. Not from a medical standpoint, but just from a, the shots are not overwhelming. It's not going to kill you. The process, there's, at some point, there's a finite, length of shots that you're going to be on. You're not going to be on them forever. Pretty soon, when you're released to that OB, it's a pregnancy just like any other pregnancy. Obviously, if it's a twin pregnancy, we're going to do a little bit more things because, there's more than one in there. It's my job to be with you from this point when you decide you want to work with us until we go home with a baby. What that means is, I'm kind of, when you work with Silver Linings and you sign on, there's no end to our relationship until you go home with a baby. If you're not home with a baby, I haven't done my job. And that means that sometimes they need to take a break. If you get to a point and you're not successful and you need to do another cycle, and maybe Dr. D says, everything looks good. The only thing I can think of is let's try another surrogate. Well, we're going to find another surrogate. I've had intended parents who need to take a break from the process. They need to take a break financially, maybe emotionally. I had some that needed to take a break because they had work projects that they had to be attentive to. And that there's no timeline on our relationship. You let me know when you're ready. We start again. There's no additional cost to you. We need to make sure that that we fulfill that commitment that we made to you to have a child. So with our process, once you decide that you want to move forward, we have what we call an application. Basically, that's us gathering information about you and your partner. We ask a myriad of questions, and it's really so that we can create that picture of you to present to a surrogate. So we have questions like, how did you meet? What's your family like? Did you go to school? And then we get down to some of the nitty or grittier questions like, how do you feel about selective reduction? How do you feel about abortion and termination? Do you want to have twins? Do you want your surrogate to pump? Do you want to be heavily involved? Do you want to be at every appointment on Skype? How many times are you going to come to the States to visit? What we're trying to do is make sure that we have your criteria all there so that we're matching you with somebody who's on the same page. Because the last thing we want to do is you want to be uber involved and she is like, I've got 4 kids in the job and, we'll talk once a week. We don't want that crisscross. So she does the same thing, in the screening process. But obviously in the screening process, we've got a whole other layer of screening that happens medically, clinically, psychologically to make sure that she's a viable candidate. So once we get your application back, we strip off the identifying information and kind of make a Bob and Joe kind of profile, so that you're she doesn't know your address and, you know, all that kind of stuff. She's not gonna come knock on your door. Of course, it is a 10-hour flight, so she would have to have a lot of initiative to, you know, track you down. But well, you guys are both reviewing each other's profiles, so she's taking a look at your story and you're taking a look at her story. Within her profile is her medical information. You get the information about how many children she's had, did she have a C-section, and she's answering the same questions. How does she feel about termination, selective reduction, will she contact, all of those things. And then, you know, there's some fluffy kind of questions in there that you have to throw in, like, you know, what do you like to do in your spare time, you know, and it's really to try and make a connection, you know, it's kind of like a IVF dating world, you know, so we're, you know, gonna go on a first date and we're seeing each other's dating profiles. Then when we think we found a viable candidate, we lay those applications across each other, then we schedule a time for us to Skype. It's much like we just experienced. We see if there's a connection. Do you feel like she's someone that you could work with? Do you feel like you can ask her questions? You can call her up and say, hey, did the baby kick today? Are you feeling this today? Do you feel like she's open to that? It's that you're on the same page in terms of your expectations about what your relationship is going to be like for the next 10 months. If that is the case, then we move on to match. I always tell people, you don't have to like her. Don't ever feel like that you're, I have to take her because what if I don't get another one? I'll go to the bottom of the line. That's not how we work. You know, you can not like her for a specific reason. You can just say, I don't know, I just didn't feel it. I feel like we had a thing or whatever it is, and all that's okay. If it's not a match, then we're going to present the next profile. I do present one at a time because I find if I don't, becomes a confusion about who we're really talking about. Sometimes take a little bit from this and a little bit from that and kind of meld them together. So that is our process of getting to match, and then once we're to match, that information goes to the clinic and along with medical records, and they're doing their in concert with working on contracts with Ms. Kim. Dr. D talked a little bit about who a surrogate is. I think he kind of touched base on most of those. I won't, you know, reiterate the same thing again. Some questions that people tend to have. Will surrogates have an issue working with a same-sex couple? Not at all. Most of them feel like that's the ultimate gift because obviously it's not like you have a uterus and you're just not using it. You know, there's something, you know, that they can do. They feel like it is a way for them really to help people. Will a surrogate be willing to carry twins? In the surrogacy world, twins are kind of like going to Disneyland. I don't understand it, but they think it's great. They're more than willing to do it. They think that it's amazing and what's it going to feel like and so-and-so do that. And they are willing to do it. I think we have to be careful, like Dr. D said, about, you know, some of the medical complications. We want to be mindful of that. But I know that some people come to this process and that's what they want. Who will make decisions about my child? It's a big one. Surrogates who go into this process understand it's not their child. That's why they're what we call them carriers most of the time, because that's what it is. They're carrying your child. They'll answer the question very typically, I would not choose to selectively reduce or abort a child, but it is not my decision, it is not my child. It is for the parents to make that decision. That's typically how they feel. Some say, wouldn't do it, couldn't do it. We're not going to match you if that's an issue for you. That would not be a match that we would propose. We respect, you know, both sides of it. Why would someone want to be a surrogate? And again, Dr. D touched on this a lot. I think that surrogates are motivated to want to help somebody. You know, I had a surrogate once tell me that she wasn't the smartest person. She wasn't gonna, you know, solve, you know, cancer and stuff, but she could carry babies, and she felt like that was her gift. It was easy for her. She was successful. It was something that she found pleasurable, and that's what she kind of felt like was her mission in life. She had 4 kids of her own and carried twins, so I mean, she was great at it. And at the end of the day, you know, surrogates want to be a part of something bigger than themselves. They want to feel like that they're helping people. They want to feel like that they're bringing somebody else into that amazing club that is called being a parent. You know, I always say my son is my heart outside my body. It's the craziest experience, and I used to think before I had to, whatever, it doesn't make any sense. But it is. It's not a Hallmark card. It really, it is, and I think that really motivates surrogates to want to be part of this process. Do you guys have questions? I think my coffee hit halfway through, and I sped up my speech a little bit, so I apologize. Just kind of revved it up. Yes?
In the 15 years of doing what you do, have you ever had an experience where a surrogate has disappeared or chosen not to fulfill the contract and give the baby over?
No, never. I have never had a situation where a surrogate did not want to give the baby over. Typically, they want you to be first skin on skin. That's very important in the parenting world these days. They want you to be there. They want you to be there when the baby's born. I will say most surrogates are more comfortable with you up by their head. Understandably. Yeah, exactly. Fair enough. I did have one that was like, no, they need to see it. I was like, whoa, I've never heard that before. They.
So videos are a no-no.
What's that?
So videos are a no-no.
Yeah, technically. Just, of the wall. But never. I mean, it's very clear what the expectations are, and there's a lot of weeding out of the process. So, they're doing an MMPI, which, is a personality test. So, it's that one that asks you the same question like 40 different times to see if you're trying to figure out the test, and are you being deceptive, and, that weeds out a lot of people. It weeds out for stress level, for any kind of deceptiveness. They go through a psychological evaluation. They've gone through my screening. You get a sense after a while of those surrogates that shouldn't be doing this, can't put a sentence together, how do you feel about the parents being involved? Cool, we need a little more. So some of those, are weeded out, but never ever. I know according to TV it happens all the time, but it really doesn't, and to be honest, most of them are like, they're glad you're going home with that newborn. They remember what that was like. They wish you well and hope you have a great washing machine and dryer because you're going to need it for that first part. Yes, sir.
Dr. D mentioned that the carrier shouldn't always be from Nevada. So what's the meaning of, as I understood that Nevada is very important in this process.
What I do is I make sure I make sure that a surrogate is from a surrogate-friendly state. What that means is we need to make sure that the law is surrogacy-friendly. So, like New York is illegal. So the last thing I want to do is match you with a great surrogate from New York that is illegal. In terms of does a surrogate always have to be from Nevada? No, there are states that have surrogate-friendly laws. And so sometimes I have surrogates, that are from those other states. It's not but what we do is we stay away from, like Utah, you have to live in Utah for 6 months, you have to do a home study. So while that's close to Nevada, would probably be the best thing to match with.
What should be done in Nevada? The IVF and the birth, or in older time the carrier can be wherever she wants, or?
Typically what I like to do is I like to recruit where it's convenient for the parents. Some of my parents don't care. They're going to go once. They're going to go at the birth, and so it's not as much of an issue in terms of travel and expense. Obviously, expenses is reduced if everything is within this circumference of area. But I think what Dr. D was trying to let you know is you do not have to work with somebody there. Versus it's great, and Kim's going to talk about the laws, and it makes it easy for you, and it's a smooth process in transition. But the most important thing is we need it to be from a surrogate-friendly state.
I'll explain in detail why Nevada versus other states. So just hold. Just hold. I'll get up.
I was thinking like, what happened if suddenly she's outside of Nevada and she gives birth in?
I'll answer that question.
And to answer your question, there is a certain point in the pregnancy that a surrogate is only allowed to go within a certain radius. So to make sure that she's not, crossing the border into Mexico, and now your, baby's in Mexico, and your contract's in Nevada, and you're in Israel. So there is a certain point in the pregnancy that her travel is limited. So for that very reason. Yes.
How many surrogates you have in your data?
My surrogates, I probably have 20 surrogates who are either pregnant in the process or.
No, generally.
I'm gonna be.
You have a data of surrogates, I mean, when you do the matchmaking.
Well, it's a little, with surrogacy, it's a little push-pull, because a surrogate isn't gonna want, a surrogate's not like a donor that she's gonna wanna come on, fill out the application, and if I get picked, I get picked. There is most of the time, a huge sense of urgency, I don't know what it is, but they wanna go now. So to recruit surrogates to have sit on a database, like a donor database, like I have a donor database, they're not gonna do it. They're going to seek out an immediate match versus we constantly have that screening and process going in, and we constantly have the intended parents in and going in, and then it's the melding of those two machines.
So basically the moment, you don't have like a data storage or something of I don't know, 200 surrogates that are willing to be surrogates when the time comes.
No, that probably doesn't.
So basically you start you start looking for them when we are starting the process.
Typically the process, I think the essence of what you're after is what's the time? How much time is
That
it?
will be the next question, I'm
Okay.
just asking.
No, I don't have a database of 200 surrogates who are waiting to go. That typically, that's what I'm saying, that they won't wait around. They will continue to seek out, now if I had 200 parents, I get 200 surrogates. It's about the fact that when they call and they say, well, how many intended parents do you have? Well, my intended parents are matched.
How do you get your surveys? How do you do that?
I advertise, I recruit, I advertise on, parenting information at community colleges and universities for those parents that are returning to. I have a 4.5-year-old, he's a great wingman, I found a couple at playgrounds. I have intended, he's like dating, I have surrogates who they have a friend who watched them go through it and they say, hey, that was pretty great. My surrogates recruit for me. My surrogates don't work on staff for me, but they recruit people that they know that might be interested. I also reach out to midwives and doulas to ask them if they, and advertise, put up flyers, word of mouth.
So basically when you are finding someone that is interested in being a surrogate, you interview her, you see her, Skype or whatever, you interview her, you do the oral medical check. How long it takes?
How do you text?
How long it takes?
Oh, how long it takes? I was like, I don't know, you just need your phone. I was like, wow, random. Most technological stuff, but I know text. It typically, when a person signs in with me to when they're matched is 6 to 8 weeks. When you're matched with a surrogate.
6 to 8 weeks?
6 to 8 weeks.
Is there a difference if I want twins or single on you?
No, not
It
really.
doesn't take longer?
No.
But I understand there is insurance issues
With,
if I want twins.
no, because an insurance policy doesn't know that you want twins. An insurance policy is going to cover the surrogate. An insurance policy isn't going to differentiate between, I would have covered you, but you have twins now.
But I understand most medical insurances exclude surrogates in part of the insurance policy.
There are insurance policies that exclude surrogacy. With the Affordable Care Act in the United States, that has changed a little bit. There has not, because it is, they can't discriminate against her pregnancy. So it depends, and we're gonna go through her insurance policy. We go through all the surrogates' insurance policies prior to them being accepted, and then we also have some policies that we know of both in Nevada and Oregon that I know don't have exclusions.
So from your experience, most insurance policies do not exclude surrogacy?
No, it depends. So if she's on her husband's insurance policy and he works for the railroad, typically not going to have a surrogacy exclusion because people from the railroad typically aren't surrogates. So private carriers typically don't have insurance. It used to be the state of California was horrible to try and get insurance from. It used to be there were some policies in Nevada that were horrible to try and get policies from. The Affordable Care Act has changed some of that wordage. They're not allowing some insurance companies to just blatantly say X, Y, and Z. So there's been kind of a shift. But in terms of twins, it's not something that an insurance policy would
כל מה שקשור
disqualify.
לביטוח, יש לזה הרבה פרשנויות והרבה על מה לדבר. אני רוצה לעשות את זה, לא, זה לא משהו שאפשר לפתור פה ואתה אפשר לעשות פשוט באחד על אחד.
זה לא בעיה, זה לא מנסה לפתור, אני פשוט מנסה להבין.
לא, בסדר. אני אומר, יש הרבה מה להבין.
עקרונית, אובמקר מאוד מאוד שינה את כל החוקי ביטוח בארצות הברית. באופן עקרוני בודקים את הביטוח של הפונדקאית לראות אם הוא מתאים ואם אין בו החרגה. במידה ואין ניסיון עם הביטוח או שיש בו החרגה, אז רוכשים עבור הפונדקאית ביטוח שיבטח אותה במהלך ההיריון, ועבור התינוקות שלכם, בגלל שאובמקר נכנס לתוקף, אז עקרונית ניתן לרכוש עבורם ביטוח בארצות הברית כי הם אזרחים אמריקאים.
ואז העלויות הן עליך.
שוב פעם, של הביטוח.
של הביטוח.
בוודאי, בכל מקרה, אם ההמלצה היא לרכוש ביטוח לפונדקאית, אז העלויות הן עליך. פרמיות של ביטוח בארצות הברית נעות בין 250 ל-500 דולר לחודש לאורך תקופת ההיריון. לגבי התאומים, מדובר בדרך כלל ב$100 לתינוק לחודש, ויש כמובן השתתפות עצמית שככל שהביטוח יקר יותר, ההשתתפות העצמית היא נמוכה יותר ולהפך, ואלה דברים שהם מאוד מאוד תלויי פונדקאית, אבל כן אפשר לאמוד אותם מראש, כי ברגע שהם מוצאים פונדקאית שמתאימה לך, אז כבר ניתן להעריך מה העלויות ומה החשיפה הביטוחית בהקשר של הפונדקאית הזאת, ואז זה חלק ממה שאתה משקלל, האם אני רוצה לעבוד איתה או אני רוצה לעבוד עם מישהו אחר, אבל זה מאוד 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 פר מקרה, ויש פה גם הרבה מאוד פרשנויות שונות של עורכי דין שונים, אז באמת כמו שי אומר, זה לפחות לחלק מעורכי הדין שאני עובד בארצות הברית לקח בערך חצי שנה ללמוד את המשמעויות של אובמקר לגבי תהליכי פונדקאות, אז זה ככה בשיחה אחד אנחנו נשמח ככה להיכנס לזה.
I was thinking the same thing. That's what I was going to say.
I tend to be
No, I
wrong,
was-
I apologized about
No,
that.
no, don't apologize. I was just being.
We're helping you.
So sorry. I apologize.
We've had cases where there have been surrogates where their insurance doesn't cover surrogacy. In those cases, you have to buy insurance. And then that's when it becomes much more expensive to buy insurance for twins versus siblings.
Yes.
But if the surrogate already has insurance, it could be, it's a different story. But if you have to purchase insurance,
And the key part about your question was you kept saying most insurances. There was a day that we said most insurance. Most was never the right word. Many more were starting to exclude surrogacy. That trend turned around and backed itself out when we got the Affordable Care Act / Obamacare, whatever you want to call it, that said you couldn't discriminate based on the method in which you got pregnant. So that started changing those policies. Are there still policies that exist that have a exclusion for surrogacy? Yes, there's still policies that exist out there. But when she's matching and looking for them, she's looking at their policies to see if it does exclude it and move on, if it excludes surrogacy, or look at whether or not you want to buy a policy.
And just real briefly, because I'm visual, I think it's important that you guys understand that this process is about you. From selecting the donor, selecting the clinic, selecting me, and it's our job to, all as professionals, work around you and what you want in this process. So always feel that you have a voice and that your voice needs to be heard, and it's our job to make sure that we get you from this point, finding out the information, to your returning home to Tel Aviv with kids. So thank you for your time.
thank you.
You have